up in this place, catching vibes, sit back and we blaze in the sky like I'm out of space.
What's going on, Cigar World? What's going on, Cigar Enthusiasts? This is Jack, the Cigar Enthusiast, and we're back with another banging segment on the virtual smoke deck, brought to you live on Sundays. Bang, bang. Man, I know everybody is kind of like excited. Everybody is like, yo, it's the first day back for official football. Like, I was excited. I mean, I'm literally in Atlanta right now. Was literally screaming at the top of my lungs, EAGLES, Eagles, here in the stadium, man. But, man, I'm excited to be back with you guys for another great week and segment, and to have it topped off with some phenomenal football. It was just a plus, man. If you're new to the channel and you don't know how this works, man, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell, give us a huge thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, man, don't be the only person to have this content at your hands. We're about to dive into an amazing conversation with the man, myth, and legend, Alec Rubin, man. I'm excited about this. So don't have this content just shared with yourself, man. Go ahead and press that share button. Create a watch party, add a friend, I don't care. But more importantly, if you are watching this segment, man, go ahead and hit that comment box. Tell me what's up. Tell us, hey, ask us how we're doing. Tell us that you don't like us, whatever the case may be. Go ahead and hit that comment box and let us know what your thoughts is for today, man. Today, like I said, we have an action-packed show with you. We were actually talking about, it should be, Jason, it should be there. Come on, guy. Yeah, you just started using Facebook today? Like, come on. The share button is underneath the post, all right? Jesus. Freaking beaners from California. Anyway, man, look, man, we have an action-packed show. Like I was telling Alan, we're going to give you a little bitty piece of our segment prior to. I was just excited to have him on the show. To have this conversation with him is about to be amazing. But yeah, other than that, man, we're not gonna hold things up. We got some announcements due at the end of the segment, pertaining with some events that we have coming up. As far as our cigar education training that we have going on with this month, are also sponsor of this month at the lounge as well, and just doing big things, man. Nothing too major. I hope everybody's fantasy football teams lineups was set and actually doing good, because mine was all over the place, like all over the place. Luckily, I caught it at like 12:59 while everybody was singing the same national anthem. Because, boy, I tell you, it was going to be rough. But anyway, man, let's dive into this thing. Today's guest of honor is a man that is literally the example of what it takes to go out and do it. Been in the industry. It's real inspirational and just freaking doing great things. I was expressing to him about my first time smoking a cigar just happened to be at Alec Bradley. But, man, when you talk about somebody that has the grit and the grind and shows the test of a man daily, man, this is this guy, man. We're excited to have him on the show for the next hour. Introducing our guest of the honor, our Alec Rubin. What's up, champ?
Hey, Jack. How are you, man?
Man, look, outside the fact that I sound like crap and I know I sound like crap, I'm good.
Yeah, but you know what? That's okay, man. You were rooting your team on today, so that's all that really matters.
Yeah, that is, because, boy, I tell you, I'm about 12 bottles of water in right now, Alan.
I'm with you,
man. Alan, how's everything going today, champ?
Everything is good, man. I have to tell you, normally I would do a Sunday at my house, but knowing I was going to come, I came a little bit early, got some work done today, so frees up my morning tomorrow. Couldn't wait to get on, man. I got on early. So I could spend some time with you, man.
And you know what's even awesome about that is, like, most of the time I'm like, yo, are they gonna show up on time? We're about to be 5 minutes into the show, but as you got to see prior to the show, it's just good conversation. Put out some expectations. We didn't even get to half of the things that we're supposed to cover, because the conversation was just so damn good. And I think that's what kind of was about to flow in tonight, man. So Sunday.
I think for me, that's why I was excited to do this with you, Jack, because it's not standard just cigar questions. It's just about getting to know one another.
Yeah.
And let your audience hear that. So, you know, I love that because I just, as we mentioned earlier, that's kind of what cigars do. They just bring people together. You have real conversation. So looking forward to it. Man,
look, Alan, I tell you what, man, we're about to dive into an amazing, you know, it's usually a three-headed dragon when anybody do Alec Bradley. You usually have Alec and Bradley and Alan, which if anybody does not know, Alec is a son, Bradley is a son. They make Alec Bradley cigars. And Alan is like the puppeteer, you know. So maybe just a little bit, right?
Well, you know, when you work with your kids over a certain amount of years, you know, they listen to what you say, but then more importantly, they kind of start to emulate what you do. So your actions are really important. Be careful exactly what you're doing because that's what they see and that's what they emulate. So
yes.
But you know what? If you're true to yourself and you're honest and you deal with integrity, kind of pretty much everything works out.
Well, so I mean, for anybody that has no clue who Alan Rubin is, even though I just did a great introduction of what it was, man, introduce yourself to everybody. And yeah, we're gonna get this thing started.
Cool. I'm Alan Rubin. I'm the founder of Alec Bradley Cigars. I started the company back in 1996 when Alec was 3 and Bradley was 1. Named the company, you know, after my 2 sons. Kind of helped me to I felt a different standard, you know, anything I did had my kids' names on it. Of course, when people ask me how I came up with the name Alec Bradley, I just said I bought a company named Alec Bradley and then I named my kids after it. So just, you know, and then years later, you know, no one ever knew that, you know, especially me, didn't know that Alec and Bradley were going to both work with me. Yeah. But man, it's cool working alongside my kids.
You know, I think working alongside your kids is like everything. You know, I'm right now in the midst of trying to brand. I wouldn't even say brand, but it's more like try to get my 15-year-old daughter to understand. Like, look, this is your company. Like, go to college. Do something that's going to be a benefit to the company. Accounting. You can even do, you know, law. You could do a business administration degree, a business management degree, something along the lines that helps you. But then you get those kids who's just like, Dad, I don't want to work with you. It's like, well, okay, let's work on to the next one. But when you put it all in correlation with each other, it's like it almost flows, right? It's like, well, Dad, it's like for you, it's like, well, son, how don't you want to work for me? The company is named after you.
But you know what, Jack? I never pushed him. And I'll tell you another thing. You said your daughter's 15.
Yeah.
At 15, she doesn't want to work with you. At 21, that may change.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so I mean, I have to say, Alec, I always kind of knew Alec wanted to be working alongside me. And I worked alongside my father for 35 years. And so I kind of always knew Alec had interest. And what was interesting is that Bradley would always ask me all these business questions. So I just thought he liked business. You know, I didn't know it was necessarily the cigar business. He'd always ask these really difficult, from the time he was in his teens, he'd ask me difficult business questions that really took thought. And so I thought, you know, he likes business. He wants to be in business. And then it wasn't until, you know, maybe he was like 20 years old or something. I said, so, you know, what do you want to do? He's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you want to do? You like business. What do you want to do? He's like, what do you mean? I want to be in business. I want to be in the cigar business with you. He's like, when I asked you all those business questions, Dad, what'd you think that was about? You know, like calling me out, you know?
You should be like, well, I don't know what it was. Yeah, why the question came about.
I just thought it was business questions, but and I have to tell you, it's been, you know, it's interesting working with your family and it has its challenges, but the rewards far surpass challenges, you know, you come across.
So I guess my biggest question is, what happened if you had another daughter or another son for that matter?
Well, I'd have to name it with the letter C. That way it'd be ABC. I don't know. I'd have to start another business, man, at this point. So,
you know, you always get caught up in those things. Like, it's like, okay, I just want to know if he stopped having kids after that, because there was no way that he had a daughter or another son and was like, yeah, Dad, I'm perfectly okay with that.
it probably every line would probably be named after her. Give her top billing over the boys.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. So Alec, you know, hands down, you see everything that's going on, especially with the building of this brand. 96, you said you started Alec Bradley. What inspired you? Like, where were you at in your life already? Where were you at in your life already? It was like, yo, I think it's time that I'm going to do this, especially growing up in Miami and, you know, from my understanding, not being
So you know what? So what happened was I was in a completely different industry, and I had some people that were interested in buying my business, and we worked the deal out very quickly. And so I was going to take 6 months off. You know, after I sold the company, I was going to take 6 months off, figure out what I wanted to do next, write a list of do's and don'ts, right? Write a list of what I wanted in my next business and what I didn't want in my next business. And then I used to smoke cigars every morning, and on the way into work, I get a cup of coffee, light up a cigar in the car, and then head into my office. And after I sold the company, or right when I knew I was going to sell the company, I actually incorporated Alec Bradley Cigars before it actually closed.
Really?
Before I closed on the business, I incorporated it just to kind of have it, because I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. And one of my guys who worked with me said to me, "So what are you going to do next?" And I said, "You know, I don't know yet." And he said, "Man, you love cigars and you smoke them every morning. You smoke them all day. You should try and get in the cigar business." And it wasn't really even in my mind, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, you know what? That'd be kind of a cool business. I love the passion behind it. I love the history of it. You know, I was kind of a student of it even back then. I always wanted to learn more about cigars." And I called a friend of mine who was a tobacconist, and I said, "Hey, do you guys have like a trade show or something like that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you mind can I go with you? You know, just to help you, walk around with you." And, you know, Jack, I walked in the room of the first trade show, the RTDA back then.
Yeah.
If I tell you I wasn't there 5 minutes, and I was like butter, man. I was just absolutely in love with the vibe, with the people. I've been to trade shows for years, you know, in my other industry, and it was cutthroat. No one talked to each other. Nobody smiled. This, you walked in, people were hugging and kissing and sharing cigars and having conversations, and I just never experienced anything like it. And I can tell you that from a consumer side, if you walked in to a trade show, you know, like just the trade, and you were just going as a guest, within 5 minutes, if you didn't fall in love with what you saw, you probably shouldn't be in this business.
No.
Because this was truly about the people and hanging out together, and competitors talking and hugging and sharing cigars. And then that night we went to dinner, and you saw people from different companies at the dinner table together. And I was like, I was hooked. That was it. I already loved the history. I love the passion behind it. I was passionate about it. But then when you saw the people, there was no other decision.
It's definitely changes your perspective on the culture, right? I went to my first trade show this last July. That was my first time going. And as you said, you know, when you walked in, like, people's like, "Oh, it's small," and it's small. Not a lot of people came out, or whatever the case may be. But when you seen people interact, you see retailers that probably have never talked to each other, that are maybe 30 miles away from each other, 100 miles away from each other, hugging, talking as if they hadn't had this conversation 20 million times. Like, you see people like you said, different brand owners sitting down and talking and having a drink and fellowshipping, and, you know, at all. Look at that right there. We're gonna get into that, JJ, on why that's funny here in a second. So you see these type of conversations just happening, more naturally than anything. So it's like I tell people all the time, it's like, you look at this business and you may see, oh, this is $1 billion industry. Oh my God, you can make so much money and blah, 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 blah. But it comes a time where money becomes just a tangible object, and it's what's going to drive you more is your passion. Do you love this? Because at the end of the day, when you love something, that means even at the hardest time with that person, thing that you love, you're still going to stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, when I got in the business in the mid '90s, kind of mid to late '90s, when I got in, there were plenty of people that got in for the money because that was the boom back then, or that was actually the beginning of the bust. But there were plenty of people that got in for the money, and they're gone. I think Cigar Aficionado did an article many years ago about all the people that came in, and maybe like the 6 or 8 companies that were still there when it was all over. Us being one, Oliva being one. I don't remember all the others, but yeah, man, if this was just about the money, you were in and out. You were gone already. There's a couple of things. One is getting into this business on the manufacturing side or on the branding side. There's no doubt you have to pay your dues in this business.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just go in, create a cigar, get a cigar. It doesn't work that way. It's easy to get a cigar, man. You can just give money and somebody will make you a cigar and whatever. It doesn't put you in the cigar business. Just gives you a cigar with your name on it. But you have to pay your dues, man. You have to keep showing up, and you have to keep expecting better. And then you have to be able to give. Cigars and manufacturing is somewhat of a barter system, right? It's like, I'm going to give you money, you're going to give me cigars. But anyone can do that. But what more do you bring? Like, what else do you bring? How do you make people in Central America, where you're doing your business, where we do our business, how do you help make them better? What more do you do for them? What more can they do for you?
Exactly.
The relationship. And when you talk about the money is just the reward of the successes that you have. Mm-hmm. The money is surely not the success, but it's the reward of all the successful relationships, all the successful things that you do with one another, how you help one another. And that's what's been the driver. There's many times there's manufacturers, and like you mentioned, Pete, we sit on boards together, we have conversations together. How do we help the industry? Like, that's real. That's tight. That's a brotherhood in itself. You know what I'm saying? Is like, what do we do to bring this industry forward? So just like what you're doing now, you provide a platform for guys like me to come on and bring the industry forward.
And I think it's funny that you hit on not only platform, but also, paying your dues. And paying your dues is not really monetary. It's like you said, your time. And I think a lot of people in life try to speed up things that because the timetables that God has already given them is not fast enough for them, which means that you're speeding that up, and then eventually you're gonna crash and burn. Because why? Your timetable is never supposed to go that quick. But you see right now, I can't, Alan, I'll be honest with you. I can't count on 2 hands and 2 feet per day how many people reach out to me and be like, man, have you tried our new cigar? Like, no. Do you want to? No, actually, I don't. Because at the end of the day, you're really going to contact me in expectations that I bring your cigar in because you pop up on my podcast, or you may come to my show. Come to my shop every now and again. No, it doesn't work like that. What is your brand doing, and what has your brand done? Right? So it's a no-brainer for me to bring in Alec Bradley. Why? Because Alec Bradley has followed their timetable and produced quality cigars after cigar, after cigar, after cigar, versus Joe Schmo that it's like, I'm going to go and, I got this guy that's stealing tobacco from Nicaragua that's blending it in his garage. I'm going to go to him and he's going to start me a blend. And then it tastes like garbage. And you're like, I can't believe this is happening. I gave you money. Like, no, it's a lot more that goes into this than just that.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're a brand owner and I want you to carry my product, and I'm a fairly new brand, one of the things that I would do is immediately walk in and say, hey, Jack, Tell me a little bit about your business. Tell me about your customers. Tell me what they're smoking now, because what I may give you may not work for you. So
Yes.
don't damage that relationship. Let me back up. Maybe on my second release, I have something for you.
Yes.
But respect the person that you're doing business with.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has helped us, or propelled us forward over the last 25 years is we want to be partners with our tobacconists. We want to find out, what are your needs, right? What is it? And I'll give you an example. When we talk about spending time and paying your dues, you've had other manufacturers that are successful on your show that are newer, that are younger, right? But if you look at it, those guys that are seeing success have been in the industry prior, doing something where they built relationships, built their name, their reputation, and that is what helps make them sustainable. So that's what I'm saying. It's hard for someone new to come in.
I seen one with John Hubert from Crown Heads. John took a picture with him and Ernesto back from 2012, right? And I seen that, and you look at it 9 years later, and you see him in that same conversation with, or not conversation, but that same picture with Matt Booth. And I look at these people, and if that is not inspirational, it's inspirational to say the least. Because at the end of the day, these guys are taking the time to develop the craft. They're not just putting out cigars and saying, okay, perfect, we're going to put out a cigar and we're going to sell a lot of them. And my goal is to go to every single cigar lounge and try to get my cigar in it. But you don't even have the backing to support, every single cigar that you're putting out, or the understanding. If anybody can come up with a cigar line in 6 months, and then we're about to talk about this, Alan, because this is something I love to talk about. How long does it typically take from start to finish for you to release a brand, from the time you started growing it or blending it, for that matter, to putting it on the shelves?
So when you say how long does it typically, there's absolutely nothing typical about creating a cigar line. Okay, for as long as we've been doing it, there are lines that fall in your lap, and because we're always blending, right? We're always trying to blend. We're utilizing new tobaccos, or we're trying to see some things that we find interesting. And sometimes you just hit on something, and you're like, okay, that works. And I'll give you an example. Black Market for us was one of those. But there's a project I'm working on now that we've been in this project for 2 years, and we're not there yet. So I'm not sure. I mean, if you say typically from the time you start blending, and then you have your packaging, all your marketing stuff, probably, like you said, 6 or 7 months, 8 months, whatever it may be. Sometimes it happens quicker. Sometimes it takes forever. And at the end, sometimes all the work you put in, it gets to the end, and I've made decisions like, it's not right, and we're not releasing it. And we've had months and a tremendous amount of resources put in. And I've turned around and said, hey, you know what? After we aged that cigar 45 days, or let it settle 45 days, something happened on the blend. It didn't work. Start over.
Yeah.
So, it's not easy. So if you want to be in the business and you just go and have a blend made for you, and you're like, okay, I have a cigar, let's go. It's a pretty difficult task.
Absolutely.
Is one. And two, so you spend money, you buy 10,000 cigars with your name on it. The work starts then.
Yeah.
Once you have those cigars, that's when the work starts.
What you do next? What you do next is everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's it's pivotal that during that time, that's what you're doing. So 2020 was Nathan. We did not forget about your question. We will get back to your question here very shortly. We're gonna stay on track for a couple of points I want to hit to, and then we're gonna go into those type of questions. So if you have any questions, then make sure you hit the comment box for them. If you have, want to say anything, hello, hi, what's up? Make sure you hit the comment box. Anyway, so JJ, real quick, me and Alan was talking about having our back studio conversation, and I was telling him my first cigar ever was the Coyo Lancero. And at first I was trying to figure out why the hell I decided that I wasn't gonna smoke cigars ever again. Not that the blend was bad. It was I had the wrong cigar at the wrong time, right? Lanceros are more cigars that's what when you smoke a Lancero, you have developed a palate that can taste notes, and that can again use a little bit of tobaccos to get the flavors that you want out of them. But I wanted to make sure I hit on that prior to Alan. 2020 was it was a major sore thumb for the entire world with the pandemic hitting. Not only the factories there, but every industry here in the United States and all over the world. One thing that we realized that in the cigar culture or the cigar industry, for that matter, we had a boom. We had a quote unquote boom in 2020 when we all thought that based on projections, we were going to have the worst year the industry has seen. Yada yada yada. Turns out we had the best year the industry has seen since 2008 ish. But then also you throw into the COVID mix. You also had a fire at one of your farms that was aging, that was growing tobacco that wasn't being used for another 3 years. But let's talk about some of the COVID setbacks, not only in the production line, but also, on the other side of it. And I'm going to tell you a comment that I love that you made in the midst of all that, but I'm going to shut up now.
No, cool. So look, nobody knew, right? Nobody knew what it was going to bring when all of a sudden everyone was on lockdown. The entire world was on lockdown. And we didn't know what to expect either. And ultimately, we manufacture a lot in Honduras. Mm-hmm. And it happened to be that in Nicaragua, they almost didn't even recognize that COVID was there. Their government didn't really make any accommodations for the people, right? So we had a lot of factories that were just taking care of their people, which was pretty cool. In Honduras, they literally shut the country down, and they shut the factory down for 5 weeks. So initially what happened was I called and I said, like, hey, how are these people going to eat? It's not like they have bank accounts and they can just draw off their savings and that type of thing. And they weren't getting any federal assistance from their government. So I'm like, how are they going to eat? And there was no real answer. So, and actually there wasn't even really food available in areas of Honduras because they knew people didn't have money and that nobody was working and they didn't want the food to spoil on the shelves. So even the grocery stores weren't bringing a lot of food in. Wow. So what we did was I spoke to a friend of mine who owns a company in Nicaragua. And I said, hey, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to do to help your people? He said, we're going to find a way to feed them. And I said, that's awesome. We're going to do the same. Yeah. And we found a wholesale grocer and we figured out all the proteins, all the starches, all the sugars that we needed. And we put together food for 700 families of 4 for 30 days. Wow. And we just literally had people working just to put these packages together so we could feed our factory people, our box manufacturers, our growers. And then we also take care of an underprivileged school in Honduras. So we had all their families who got food and all those things. So that was like the first thing that happened was like, hey, let's just take care of the people because how do I preach family? And all of a sudden things get tough and it's not about family, right? Like it doesn't make sense. It's not real. And it doesn't have any real integrity behind it. So first thing we did was we took care of everybody as best we could. And then when people started to come back, we made sure that the place was kind of as COVID safe as we could, right? We put up partitions and did all of those things. We had a doctor on site, those type of things. But what happened was we didn't realize that we were going to see this increase in demand. I mean, and it wasn't, by the way, it wasn't like this. It was like this. It was an increase in demand that we didn't know exactly what to do. And what we figured was people are home and they're staying home. And normally if they'd smoke on the weekends, now every day is somewhat of a weekend. They're home every day. So people were now not smoking 2 cigars on the weekends. They had plenty of time on their hands. They were smoking a box a week, a box every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we saw this amazing, increase, for the entire industry. And we had to figure out how do we ramp up production ultimately. So,
and I feel like, one of the biggest questions was, how do we ramp up production while also breaking through COVID barriers, lack of, infrastructure, government infrastructure, and providing all of that and still making it safe and accountable. So, the biggest question is, how did you do it?
Well, first of all, last year, we weren't allowed to even travel down to Central America till November. And so we were pretty much on the phone with the factories every day or every other day, trying to find out, what do you need? What's going on? How many people were in today? What do the productions look like? And then at the same time, when all of a sudden things were booming up, there was a little bit of dirty pool within the industry that took place. One of the larger companies were starting to steal rollers because they saw the increase in demand, and they purged. They pilfered a lot of rollers from some people. I think we lost maybe 12 pair at that time, but there was a factory that had 60 pair, and when it was done, they only had 5. One of the big major players took all the rollers. So we put a stop to it, and then we were able to gradually increase. Now we had the tobacco, Jack. We had all the tobacco that we needed, right? We have tons of premium tobacco that are always in aging.
Yeah.
But it was now trying to find the human resource. How do we find the rollers? And how do we find the rollers that are trained properly?
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to do training, and there's a lot that took place. So it took us time to ramp up the productions. But we did it judiciously. We did it. We were smart about how we did it. We didn't just go from X amount per day to Y.
Yeah, right.
Hey, how do we get another 1,000 a day? And then how do we get another, after a month, how do we get another 1,000 a day until we continue to build up?
Yeah. So, dealing with back orders, it seems like that's what the industry deal is right now. Like you said, not enough people that are able to roll this tobacco and the manner and the professionalism that they need to roll it in. So based on, what happened in 2020, how long do you think you will feel the effects of 2020 going forward?
Well, we have a lot of our customers that are already placing 2022 orders. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we're going to catch up to the 2021 demand. I don't think we'll be able to fulfill all the orders that we have, but that's not our goal.
Yeah.
Our goal is to make the best cigars that we can make, mm-hmm. and fulfill everything that we can properly, not just bring cigars into the market. Absolutely. And so if we go into 2022 with back orders, we do, but it's not going to change who we are and how we make our cigars.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing is, one thing that I have developed over having these conversations, that nobody is going to cut corners in order to meet the demands of us, right? And I say us as retailers, right? Because honestly, manufacturers don't do B2C. They do B2B, and we do B2C. So when you're dealing with us, it's a little bit like, bro, I placed this order 5 months ago. Can I get something? You know what I mean? Like my shelves are empty. I got customers asking about boxes of Gatekeeper and, black market. Like, yo, can we get something?
I know.
Anything? Okay, look, you're going to ship 20 boxes here. Let me get 5 of those, or let me get 2 of those. Like from us, we're always willing to deal. Like, yo, we need something. All right.
Yeah. Listen, when my shipments come in, within 3 days,
they're gone.
They're gone. They're out the door. But let me tell you what's interesting.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, look, I'm not complaining. I don't want to say the pandemic should go another year or two, but I'm not saying that. But yeah, it is a good, I always say there's a difference between stress and distress, right?
Yeah.
Stress is when you have all these orders and you can't necessarily fill them. Distress is when you have all this product and you have no one to sell it to.
Man, what?
I'm okay with stress. We'll be okay. Stress
Yeah.
makes you work harder and smarter.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what I find is going to be the most interesting. Coming into 2022, there's going to be tobacco shortages because you can't pump up that kind of production. And then all of a sudden you just think everyone's going to have tobacco.
Yeah.
Now, we're very fortunate because of how much we grow, right? And everyone that we work with are major tobacco people. Not necessarily
major.
Forget cigar manufacturing.
Yeah.
Tobacco people.
Yeah.
So our ability to get the tobaccos that we need will be there.
Yeah.
But not everyone will be, I think, as fortunate. And that's an unfortunate statement in itself. But
it's a realistic one.
Yeah, because all these brands that are working really hard to build their brand names right now, it may be difficult moving forward to get some cigars, potentially.
Especially like those signature, Connecticut broadleaves or Mexican San Andreas or, Ecuadorian Sumatra, those different things that are probably going to be a lot harder to get to. So obviously we know about the fire that happened. What the statement that I was saying that I just love that you made was like, it does little effects to our now. It was to me, it seemed as if it was just like, for somebody like me, I'd have been like, yo, I just lost X, Y, and Z amount of money. He was like, yeah, look, we're not worried about it right now because at the end of the day, we're growing tobacco. Like you said, we have a plethora of tobacco sitting, fermenting, curing, aging, all of this time, all of these things at, all these moments. So, when you made that statement, I was just like, that's some boss stuff right there. That was like a real, but I guarantee it was genuine.
Well, so what happened was we had just gotten there that day, right? We had just flown in. We drove from the airport to the factory, which was like 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes. And our routine is normally pretty similar. Like we come in, we drive over, we sit down because we know we take the morning flight, sit down, have lunch, and then we get into business. And so we got there, ordered lunch, and just as kind of lunch was coming, one of our supervisors kind of whispered over to my partner, was like, said something. And then I saw a look and I'm like, hey, what's up? No. I'm like, no. What was that? Like, what's up? He's like, our barns are on fire. So I go like, well, what are we doing here? Like, it was almost like there's nothing we could do from here. So then I was like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Get in the car and let's go.
Right.
And within 30 minutes, we had lost three barns, 2 greenhouses, 2 large greenhouses. So when we got there, man, the fire was just out of control. And, at that point, I go into kind of assessment mode, like, okay, where are we? What's going on? How much tobacco is in there? What does this all mean? What does this mean in the future? What happens? I have tobacco in the fields.
Yeah.
So forget what burned up. What do I do with the tobacco that's in the field?
Right.
If it doesn't get into a drying barn, it could go bad. That's when I really lose. So we had a real conversation. It was like, how soon can we rebuild them? Like while we were there, how soon can we rebuild? He's like, as soon as the smoldering stops, as soon as, everything smolders out, over the next 4 or 5 days, we could start to rebuild. And we did. And I said, well, we have to figure out what to do with the tobacco that's in the field. And we made calls. And somebody who was not growing at that time lent us their drying barns.
Wow. So
when I talk about relationships,
like
shit happening for one another, like being there for one another, somebody lent us their drying barns, and all that tobacco that was in the field was able to go into the barns.
It's literally the power of networking, man. You know, it's like no matter how high you feel like you are, you know what I mean? No matter how high you actually get, no matter how big your bank account gets, the most valuable thing that you can do is sit down, have conversations, and network. Because I mean, at that very moment, I mean, you're looking at the magnitude that you were looking at, and then based off the assessment that you made, it's like I'm gonna think your other thought, like, what the hell do we do? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
like we need to figure it out. We need to figure it out quick, but I don't necessarily have the answer. So what do we do to make it work?
And it really shows, and we talked about this earlier, it really shows the power of the relationship, right? Where I said the success is not the money, right? That's the reward. The money is the reward of the successful relationships. If we didn't have enough relationships to be able to get that tobacco out of the field and into barns, we would have had a major loss. But at that point, we only lost 3 barns worth of tobacco. That I can regrow.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, we're at the point right now that we have 2 barns that are back up. We made them a lot wider than they were. They hold a lot more tobacco, and we're building another one coming up. So we're okay. It was really a time setback, and financial. It was a bit of a setback financially, right? Because there was no insurance.
Yeah.
You can't insure kind of wood structures down in Central
Wow.
America. And it's hard to put a value on
Right.
not only the wood structure, but the tobacco within it. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to put a value on that at that moment. So,
Cause it's like you're trying to figure out what it eventually would sell for, and you know, it's just.
And the insurance company's not going to do that. Like,
No.
what's the value down the road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it now? So, talking about, you guys came out with the Gatekeeper. I think your Gatekeeper, and then the diamond pressed Black Market was like your last releases. Are there any expectations on bringing something newer out? One cigar, if I must say, that I was surprised that went away was the Nico Puro diamond press. I personally love that cigar. Clearly, the rest of the world did not love that cigar. So if you got something you want to send them to me, I got you. I'll take care of it.
Well, it's funny. I have to tell you, people did love that cigar.
Really?
But what happens is, as we were moving forward, we didn't know what was going to go on with Nico Puro because it needed a repackaging.
Yeah.
So it needed a repackaging. The cigar was great and it sold, but it needed a repackaging. And so at that time we said, hey, let's try a different diamond.
And so that's when y'all came out with the Black Market.
Mean that the diamond rough cuts they may come back. They may come back, but
I got you.
But yeah, I can't make any commitments while I'm on air right now. But it needed a whole repackaging.
Yeah.
So it was like a perfect time to, shift it over and try something new.
So if I was to fill in the blanks, there's possibly a repackaging happening on the Nico Puro where we may see this in, I don't know, half wheel, maybe next year or something like that.
So here's the thing. What the pandemic did ultimately was it threw off a lot of timing stuff.
Yeah.
Because where we would have something slotted right now, things have been so busy. How do I come up with something new when I can't fill orders of what I currently have?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the right thing to do for, like we have a relationship.
Yeah.
How could I turn to you, Jang, and say, hey, I can't give you this, but I'm coming out with something,
You might be onto something right there.
So
yeah,
it's really all about trying to do the right thing and kind of under promise and over deliver what we're trying our best to do.
Yeah, Gatekeeper is something that is being hard to keep on the shelves, and obviously production has been kind of slowed down with the constant ordering of because it hit magazines several times and high ratings. I think the highest one was like a 94, 93 or something like that. I may be wrong, but I think you probably know the numbers a lot better than I do. So I mean, we're expecting something great from Alec Bradley for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Gatekeeper. The good news on Gatekeeper is that we were just down and we're able. One of the tobaccos we had, which we during this time of everyone needing tobacco, we had a difficult time getting, but we went back to our source. We committed to that tobacco for the next 3 years. And there was like, okay, if you're going to give me that kind of length of commitment on that tobacco, then because we grow a lot, but we still have to purchase, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then as soon as we gave that commitment, they're like, okay, we got you. And so we just purchased,
Everything.
I think we just, our last shipment was like 40 bales that went over just the one tobacco, one component.
And one bale is 4,000 tons? 4,000 pounds?
No. One bale is about 120 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So we bought about 5,000 pounds, but it's only one leaf in that blend. So, but we couldn't be without it. So
yeah. And I was talking to Steve, and I know this is the Alec Bradley segment, but Steve broke down so much to me last week, and I was like, I was literally staring at the computer like this, because it was he mentioned that he was like, it's one leaf, you can one blend can be off because of one leaf, right? And it's crazy that a company like Alec Bradley, right? That's becoming a staple in this industry, had problems with one leaf. So if they had problems with one leaf, the people that's not as big as them, or the people that are equally as big as them, or the people that may be bigger than them, still going to have problems, or 9 times out of 10 going to run into a problem where it's one leaf.
Right. So what happens is sometimes people make the decision to replace that leaf with something else.
Then it throws off the blend.
And we won't do that.
And then you got people like me, like, there's something wrong with what? This don't taste like the normal thing, because a lot of companies do that. I'm not gonna name drop, but there was one company that when they hit it off, they hit off great. I never was I wouldn't say supportive of it. I was not really a fan, because I felt like it was targeting a certain demographic that we already knew smoked cigars, and certain organizational types, where we were going to then brand our entire brand based on this quote unquote fraternity. So the blend started off really good. Then one day I'm like, something wrong with this. And I wasn't even a fan of them already. So when I caught on it again, I had one that I had shoved away in my humidor for some years now, and I pulled it out, and I smoke it, and I puff on the new one. I puff on the old. See, now these are two different cigars. They're same branding, same labels, two different cigars for sure.
And you know what, Jack, that happens. I was having a conversation with one of the top winemakers in the United States. We were sitting down over drinks and had a conversation. I said, well, how do you keep year over year, how do you keep your wine consistent? And he started laughing. He's like, you'd probably be a good winemaker because you understand the biggest issues that we have, right? Like, how do we manipulate the blend to make sure year over year it tastes the same?
Yeah.
And by the way, that happens with us too. And I'll give you an example. You may have a year that has more rain or less rain, and that affects the tobacco. So when you go to use that X amount down the road, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, what you may have used a certain priming, right? If there's a lot of rain and it doesn't possess all the strength and the flavor, you may have to go up.
Yeah.
And so that's what we work on. We work on maintaining the profile. And what you found was a brand that didn't necessarily work on, they may have stayed with the same blend, but they didn't necessarily try and keep the same profile.
Consistency, yeah.
It's
science. It's science to the T. When I look at this stuff, I'm like, how the heck do y'all just, like, where's the book at? So I can read it. And I think that's why a lot of people shy away from the master tobacconist or the master of anything in this industry, because it's always something that you're learning. It's like, when you see people like Orlando Padron that won't say out of his mouth that he's a master, and we must take a step back and be like, hold on, wait a minute. You know what I mean? If this guy won't say this, then it's something that we need to learn. And just having conversations like those inspirational conversations with folks, and realizing that you still have room to grow. You still have a lot more to learn. So 1996, you got into this industry. What was like your inspiration when you walked into that trade show? I was like, I love it. This is what I'm going to do. Like, who was the inspiration that was like, I can do this?
I don't know that I necessarily had an inspiration because I didn't really know anybody like in the business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what drove me forward, what made me build my resolve is that I just wanted to feed my family.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was about an industry that I felt I loved. I was going to work hard to try and be successful. I had no clue whether that was going to happen. And it was about putting food on the table for my wife and my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that drove me. I mean, I had never been to Central America before.
Mm-hmm.
Got on a plane, tried to figure it out, and kept going back. And so what ultimately happened was over a period of time, when we started to get some success, what I realized is that there are plenty of families that have been doing this generationally, and they somewhat became my inspiration. Like, hey, they've already created the model.
Yeah.
I don't have to recreate any, I don't have to create something new. I can just look at what some of the major players, that are family-owned companies that are successful and sustainable, what did they do?
Yeah.
And those became my inspiration. A lot of those Cuban families that generationally did it, that I look at the footsteps that they laid down for me,
mm-hmm.
and said, hey, this is what we've done to be successful, and why not try and emulate that?
Yeah. I think that's real good. What, like, just listening to it, I don't even know the words to kind of respond to it. Not that everything needs a response, but just thinking about that, that's something that was real good. So 96, you decide to go in, you build this company to what it is now. What's been the hardest thing that was maybe different from your last industry, but the hardest variable that ultimately drove your success in this business?
That's a great question. So the industry I was in before was kind of like, no matter what I was selling at that time, it was like, what's your price? And, service was expected and demanded. And then it was all about just price.
Yeah.
And then I get into this business and it's all about building a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So without question, the hardest thing I've ever done in my career, in all of the businesses, whatever I've done, the hardest thing has been to build a brand, is to build brand recognition and brand, acceptability, that people turn around and say, oh, I know Alec Bradley, and I smoke Alec Bradley, and I've been smoking Alec Bradley. I mean, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That takes everything you have plus.
Mm-hmm.
That takes thousands of sleepless nights. Waking up. I mean, you can, if you asked everyone in my office, they'll tell you it is not uncommon for them to get an email that I sent at 3 a.m. Right? Or that it was a Sunday afternoon at 6, and I'm hoping they don't open it till Monday. Right? But I send it because that's what's on my mind at the moment.
Yeah.
That's to build a brand and for people to accept it and to have brand recognition, brand equity, that's by far been my most difficult challenge, and it still is today.
Yeah. Is
how do we bring the brand forward? How do we get more people to understand who we are and what we do and what our brand stands for? So,
and I guess a lot from the brand recognition part of the side of the house, I guess, and from my understanding, and your segment of it is more or less continue to gain that constant support, right? You have already done, you're not done with everything, but you have done what you needed to do to get your brand recognized. So when people see your face or see your logo, oh, that's Alec Bradley. Oh man, he has this cigar, he has that cigar, he has this cigar. They won this, they won that. Now it's about building what I like to call that cult-like following,
mm-hmm.
To where you literally have the people like, oh, I need this, I want this type deal.
Yeah, I mean, so now that we're very fortunate. We sell in about 45 countries outside the United States, and we have a distribution center in Germany. We have, handle Europe. We have a distribution center in Canada as well. So now that we are kind of expanding and we're able to kind of, grow the brand on a worldwide level, now the question becomes, what are they saying about the brand?
Yeah.
What is the language of the brand? And so that's what we're really working on, is what is the language of the brand, and what is it that we are hoping that they say? What do we have to do? What do we have to continue to improve on and get better on?
Yeah.
So that they're saying the things that we want them to say, right? All positive, and happy to recommend it and happy to tell their friends about it. So those are the things that we continuously work on.
That's just another mind-blowing conversation that we'll probably save for ourselves. So Nathan said, can you give your top 5 or 3 selling cigars in the background of how they came about?
Yeah. So, Black Market is our #1 selling cigar volume-wise worldwide. Prensado is up there. Gatekeeper, which is fairly new, is a kind of a rising star within our portfolio. Tempest, which has been a kind of a stalwart within our brand. So Tempest is the brand that kind of helped put us on the map.
Yeah.
So there are, and now with our new Project 40 and Project 40 Maduro, that is kind of seeing this skyrocket of movement right now within our brand. Those are all, very important brands for us. Magic Toast also, man, I can't get enough of it, but Magic Toast is like, if I could just take the time and just produce Magic Toast, like give it its own space, that thing would be through the roof, and we just can't keep up. But
yeah.
So, Prensado we had this tobacco that we were working with out of an area called Trojes, which is in the Jalapa Valley in Nicaragua, but on the Honduran side of the border. And that was what gave us Tempest. And Tempest was our first rated cigar with a 94 rating, and it took top 25. So what we did was we kind of built off that brand, off of Tempest, and said, we'd love to do a box press, which we didn't have at the time. And we manipulated the blend to make it a little sweeter, a little more impactful. And we created Prensado. And then, in 2011, Prensado got #1 cigar of the year. So that was a big movement for us, right? So that's how that was created. It was that Prensado was created off of Tempest, taking the understanding of that tobacco and then manipulating it to where we needed it for this new blend. And then Black Market is probably one of the more interesting stories for us, because we had been working with Panamanian tobacco for like 2.5 years, and we would always blend with it, but I couldn't get it. It's like it wasn't working. I couldn't figure out, am I using more Jamastran or more Jalapa or more Esteli? Like I couldn't figure out what was going to enhance that flavor of that Panamanian tobacco. And Black Market, man, it wasn't even in the thought process. It was just one of our trademarks. And we were down in Central America, and my VP, Ralph, we were smoking, and we'd always try and smoke the same cigar. So if there were questions, we'd always be on the same, on the same cigar.
Yeah, right.
And we had like 18 blends that we did the month prior using Panamanian tobacco. And I got to like the 3rd blend, and I started smoking it. And I said, hey, smoke that cigar. And he smoked it, and we're just talking. And I said, this is Black Market. He's like, man, you're out of your mind. We're not even here for Black Market. Like, that's not why we came down here like this.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I didn't pick it. It picked me. I'm telling you, this cigar, it just spoke to me. It's Black Market. And then had all these ideas that were flooding through my head, and then started sending all these pictures to our creative director at the time at like 2 a.m. from bad cell service and it was like, I could barely get internet. It was going in and out. I was up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning sending pictures, and he called me. He's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, I got 40 emails from you at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're just crates. I don't know what it means. And I was like, well, we have this idea for black market. And like, you know, the fact that we were using this tobacco, not everyone knew this Panamanian tobacco. And all of a sudden, man, we put it all together and that thing just
skyrocketed.
Just took off. Right. So that was kind of a cool story because it wasn't really on the radar. Project 40 is kind of a neat story in itself because Project 40 is an actual real study on happiness. And so what happens is they say that 50% of your happiness is genetic and 10% is environmental. And the other 40% you control. And so I started thinking about those things that kind of transcend you, like music, good food, good wine or spirits, you know, those good vibes that kind of take you to another place. And I'm like, man, no one talks about cigars that way. But cigars take you to another place.
Yeah.
They put you in a place of peacefulness and calmness. And so we just came up with this blend, man. We just tried to make everything where there was no resistance. Price was right. The flavor was good. Everything, the packaging wasn't overpackaged. It was just like right there. And called the Project 40. And then that shit just hit. And
I love Project 40, by the way.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then Bradley came to me one day. He's like, Dad, you know, we have this blend that we did, and it's a Maduro, and it like falls. We used the basis of Project 40 as the base blend.
Yeah.
And he's like, smoke it, and I smoked it.
That was a proud dad moment right there.
Yeah, man. I was like, this is brilliant. I'm like, what are we doing with it? He's like, Project 40 Maduro, and I'm like, cool. And so we put it into production. We launched it, and again, it took off, and it was just one of those moments like things started to hit. So, and then Magic Toast. Magic Toast was Magic Toast. The name was a bit of a joke because of how it happened. Remember, I said we do the same routine.
Yeah.
Like get land,
get there, go to eat lunch.
So we took a later flight. And we got in late. We were supposed to go to the factory, just spend like an hour or two, then go to dinner. And then my partner in the factory he just kept going straight. He didn't turn to the factory. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, we're going down here. We're going to the farm. I said, okay. And he showed me this tobacco, and he's like, look at this. You got to see this. We aged some of this off from the drying barns. We aged a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And I looked at it. It was kind of dusk, and so he turned the lights on the truck. He's like, you got to look at this. And I did. And I'm like, man, this is beautiful. This is like real deal. This is a game changer. We took a little piece, we rolled the purito, and I smoked it, and it was like flavorful and sweet. And it was like right there. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. Right. And I go, this is magical. That was kind of like as my, like almost a little bit of a joke.
You sure you were smoking tobacco?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was just kind of joking, like, this is like a magic moment, type of thing. And he knows that we have a partnership with Glenfiddich, and he had a bottle of Glenfiddich in the truck, and he pulled it out. He's like, let's make a magical toast like that. And so we started working with the tobacco.
Magical toast. Got it.
And I was like, what do we call it? And like, I don't know. It's like Magic Toast. Let's call it Magic Toast. That's what it's like, that was what it was about. So
that's funny. Yeah. I think you might have been smoking something else right there, Alan. But now that you said the story, it was like, okay. What was it about the tobacco that was like, wow?
Because what happens is, in the process, in the drying barns and in the aging process, there's a balancing act, right? Like if it's shiny and oily, it doesn't burn because the oils retard the burn. So like there's a balancing act between color and between oils and between flavor and burn. It's truly a science. Yeah. And yet this thing was burning and it was sweet and there was still a lot of oils in there. And I was like, this doesn't normally happen like this. So
that's the magical part of it.
Yeah.
Cause what you drinking? We just heard it.
Just drinking
some Stellar
Antique 107.
Hey, look, one day, whenever I'm in Miami, I'll reach out to you. Maybe we can have a glass and smoke a cigar. That is probably magical.
Jack, we got to do that, man. You got to come here and we got to chill in the lounge and
I have no problems with that.
Yeah, if you look, I got plenty of whiskey all over.
I got plenty. I see it back there. You got some on your desk.
And we have a few cigars here too.
I wouldn't expect anything else.
Yeah. We'll smoke well and we'll drink.
Hey, no, seriously though. I remember one time, right before I was a manufacturer. I mean, I said before I was a manufacturer. I'm not a manufacturer. No, I'm not. Before I was a retailer, I knocked on somebody's door and was like, "Hey, I love your brand. I'm in the city. Can I come see it?" And it was like a Sunday at like 5:00. Yeah, it was late. And it was like, we're only open to retailers. I was like, man, I love your brand. Like, I'm a consumer. Can I come in? You know, came in, they let me in, took me around the lounge, showed me where all their packaging was. And at that time, I got MSRP. I mean, not MSRP, wholesale price on a box. It was Padron's factory. And I was like, yo, that's amazing. But, sometimes just being able to, just showing up is sometimes your best experience. You have all these scheduled meetings and like, yeah, Alan, you have time with Alan from 1 to 1:30. I don't want the time then. It's like, what the hell can we do? What can we do in 30 minutes? You know what I mean?
You can't it's hard to build a relationship on a time schedule.
Last time I checked, it's going to take me an hour and a half to smoke that. So I need at least an hour and a half. But,
we had a situation. We don't do a lot of Alec Bradley lounges because I don't necessarily believe in it.
Yeah.
Generally, there's a lot of expectations when you brand a lounge. Like, hey, we're going to put this money into the lounge and you have to buy a certain amount. And it doesn't necessarily help the consumers.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes forced.
Yeah.
So I never really believed in it much. But we had two partners that came down from Lincoln, Nebraska, and said, "Man, we love your Live True. It touched us. We understand it. We love the brand." And so they flew down, man, and we talked and we spent the afternoon together, and it was all done. And he's like, "We want to do an Alec Bradley. We want a place to be."
Is that Capital Cigars?
Capital, yeah. And that was all based on the relationship of hanging out together and being with one another and understanding that they were going to represent our brand properly.
Yeah.
And that, again, like you talk about the relationship, like you walked in, that's everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to figure out my schedule.
Don't threaten me like that.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Hey, say less. Hey, Alan, I know you have a lot going on, man. We could sit here and talk for days, hours, but that would be inconsiderate of your time. I more or less appreciate you so much for not only taking this time to sit down with us, but, just dropping the nuggets that you drop within this segment. And I'm serious about coming to Miami, and we're definitely going to be sitting down and having a cigar and having a drink, because I think it's so much that we can learn that we don't necessarily have to intentionally come out with a list of questions and say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, versus just having a conversation and letting the gems fall out. So one thing that we do on this, on the virtual smoke deck, is we drop a gem. The gem can be about anything. Doesn't necessarily have to be about cigars. It could be about business. It could be about life. It could be about something motivational, something that you've seen that you didn't like, and you're like, hey, I want to tell the word about it, or give a positive light on this, or whatever the case may be. So one gem that you would like to drop on the people that's watching and the people that's going to watch this show in the near future.
So I think that no matter where you are in your life, if you have some level of success, it's really important to be humble. I think that's everything, right? Is to be able to walk in and be the same person you were when you didn't have that level of success. Mm-hmm. And it was told to me, and it's a famous quote, but it was told to me from another cigar manufacturer, very, very big in the growing of tobacco. And he said, "In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king." And so if you think about that and what it means, no matter how successful, it's only based on who's around you. And there's always going to be people better, right? There's always going to be people better. You have to be comfortable with where you are.
Yes.
And so don't worry about what other people are talking about with you. Just know who you are. And so that was really important to me. And I have a friend of mine, somebody that you mentioned earlier today, actually, another cigar guy. And one day we were having a conversation. He called me and said, "Hey, I need some help." And I said to him, "Stop reading your press releases."
Hey, I don't know if you know, but you just talked to me. You just talked to me. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's deep.
Yeah. Listen, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
And so that's when I said, man, like, stop reading your press releases because we know it's real. Like, be real, stay there. And so, and I hope that my kids, are able to follow that same path. And right now they're on a good path on their own. So, yeah. Things are actually getting easier for me, Jack, because, the kids are coming up, the kids are working hard. And I say they're kids, they're young men, and they're taking it serious.
Yeah.
So that's good for me.
So 96. So they're about 24 and 27, 26.
You got 29 and 26.
Oh shit, I was all the way off.
Not too bad.
Well, I'm old enough to be your son, so that's a good thing. So, man, no, seriously though, my wife has been chiming in, so she have heard the conversation. Honey, we're going to Miami to sit down with Alan.
Cool.
So let's figure out what our schedule looks like. She handles all the scheduling stuff.
I like it.
I don't worry about it. Well, Alan, again, we do appreciate you so much, brother. More than anything, continue to prosper, continue to be successful, continue to build this brand. And, Nathan had another question. I don't think it was it wasn't inappropriate, but I don't think it was appropriate for the segment of the show. But Nathan, let's sit down. Shoot me a message, and I would try to answer that to the best of my ability. But it was a breakdown of chain of command and leadership breakdown in your company size. But I think that's pretty manageable information that we can probably get you with no problem. So unless you want to handle that, Alan.
Give me the exact question so I know.
Okay. Are you able to share how your chain of command or leadership breakdown is with the size of your company? I think me personally, I've seen it as a vague question. So,
yeah. So we have people that are in positions as in head of marketing, right? National sales manager and vice president, which kind of handles the operations. But I'm not a big title person. So I don't have a title on my business card. My VP doesn't have a title on his card. I don't know if my kids have titles on their cards. Because I always say, hey, if you do what you're supposed to do and you do it properly, people will know what you do.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to put vice president or something. But everyone's different, in that respect. In our chain of command, we try and make it as transparent as possible, which means we have people that head up certain divisions of our company. And I do that so that I have one person to speak to. So our national sales manager, he deals with all of our territory managers. But if I need to call the territory manager, I call. And if they need to speak with me, they call.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have my territory managers that will call me at 12:30 at night, 1:00 in the morning. Like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? That type of thing. And I'm always trying to be available. So we follow a standard command, but we don't have a lot of layers, Jack. We just don't do a lot of layers because I think we're a personable company. Like, we're one-on-one. I don't have an automated system answering my phone. I have people that pick up my phone.
Yeah.
So we try and keep it as close as we can. Right. Yeah. So someone asked me about being a big business. And I said, I never wanted to be a big business. I wanted to be a small company doing big business. But I never aspired to have all these layers of people and management and all those things. I never aspired to have that. I aspired to be a small company that does big business because we're in it. And you can call me and I have tobacconists that are calling me, say, hey, Alan, like what's going on or what's happening here? And I get back and I get answers because, man, this is how we built it.
Yes.
We haven't changed as a company. As we've grown, we haven't really changed much as a company in that respect.
And I think having those small positions, I wouldn't say small, but me, I'm like that. You know, my wife is like, you need to. My wife is like, she is very strict on my scheduling and what I can and cannot do in retrospect to business. But she's like our VP. Like I handle operational stuff, but she handles everything else. And it's just like, hey, you come to me first before you go to him. You know what I mean? But again, it's always like, if you need me, call me. You know, if there is something that I can assist you with, I'll try my best to try to get that accomplished. And I get it on the more scaling side. Because I mean, Alan, how many employees you got? Probably what, 100, 200,000? I mean, 100 or 200?
Well, in the U.S., we only have 30.
Okay.
In the U.S., right? And then we employ with the factories just about 1,000 people total.
Okay. So theoretically, I mean, do you don't count them on payroll, right?
No.
Oh,
We
okay.
have 30. We have 30 people
30.
here.
Okay, so 30 is not bad. You know, from I personally thought it was like 100 or something like that. But 30 is not a bad number. But again, it's good to have those simplistic things put into your process that allows you to, you know, kind of live your life. And I think that is it, right? As people say, Jack, how you go to Atlanta? You know, your business is open. I said, I didn't start a business to work every single day, every single moment, every single minute inside that business. There's a lot of things like this is work. I can work on the road. I can do, you know, reports on the road. I can look at everything that I need to. Yes, I need to be there, but I'm not going to break my back or lose my mental health or lose my sanity trying to be somewhere every single minute. And I lose valuable time with my kids or my wife or shit, my life.
Yeah. Well, if you hire good people, it allows you to do that.
Yes.
So, I mean, I truly have people that are passionate and hardworking and loyal. I mean, here's the thing. I have people that'll take a bullet for me, but on the other side, they know I take a bullet for them.
Yeah.
They know that. When they are at their worst, when they are at their lowest, they know I'm here, no matter what. Look, let me put it to this way. When COVID hit and everything was shut down, I have guys that go on the road for a living, my territory managers.
Yeah.
Right? I called a meeting. This is right at the beginning. And I said, listen, people are laying people off. No one knows what's going on. Not one of you has a job that's in jeopardy. Every one of you will stay employed. I'm not cutting any salaries. I'm not cutting anybody back. You all are okay. I want you to calm down, take a breath. Everything's fine. And we'll figure out what happens next. Doesn't mean you have time off. You have to just work differently.
Yeah.
If you can't get on the road, get on the phone.
Yeah.
We still have customers like you that have needs. What are those? Take care of it.
Yeah.
But no jobs are in jeopardy.
Well, I mean, go ahead. Sorry, Anna.
No, I'm saying because if you're an organization that gives a shit, if you care about your people and you want them to care about you, it's not about when the times are good. It's when the times are tough. They want to know what you're made of.
Yeah. That's it right there. And that's one thing that, like, I have noticed just easily from this conversation is like, you're going to take care of your people, man. So I'm not going to hold you up, champ. Hang tight. I definitely want to talk to you offset. But we appreciate you so much for taking time out. We are grateful for your time, as well as everything that you're doing to make the industry better. So thank you so much, brother.
Appreciate you, Jack. Thanks for everything, man.
Man, most definitely. We'll see you soon. Man, one thing I love about the virtual smoke deck, man, is like you never know where the conversation is going to go. The conversation could be at one point where we're going to be coking and joking and have some experimental things on tobaccos and all that stuff, or you could just have a real unique and down-to-earth conversation with a guy that, like Mr. Rubin, that is just doing great things, man. I hope you guys see our platform as that, it's different, right? We're cigars and business, We're not going to ask those same generic questions that everybody else is asking on their podcast. It's about having the connection, and it's about having the relationship. And that is what we're building, right? I tell people the foundational components of the virtual smoke deck is literally as if me and this person is sitting down and having a cigar with each other. And that's how I feel. So, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Next week, we have, I think we got, let's see. First and foremost, before we go into next week's guest, we have a couple of things that's coming up. So at the lounge, our sponsor for the month is Ashton. So it is Ashton month. We are doing 20% off on boxes. Every single purchase of 5 or more cigars comes with tickets to win humidors and all other prizes that is going to be released on the 29th, not released, but raffled off on the 29th at our Ashton event at the lounge. It's from 7 to 10. But we have our cigar training that was, asked by several people to come back and do a training that we did with Altadis. We're bringing that same cigar training back, but we're doing it with Ashton this month. So it's going to be 5 cigars, a lighter cutter for $40. So, and a training, from those type of from the expert himself, Jose Ortega. So it's going to be a great time. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, go get your tickets. If you haven't got, purchase your box yet, man, go to the lounge and purchase your box, or go online and purchase your box. And the same thing that goes, you don't have to be in person to do these things. Couple things that's happening in the lounge. We have next Sunday is Mimosas and Stogies, the brunch smoke, which is from 12 to 4. We'll have a live DJ there. It's going to be off the chain, but we're also dealing with football season as well. So our lounge is always going to be the place for you to watch your football. Tomorrow, next Sunday, we're probably not going to have the volume on the TVs until our evening games. Just something to consider. But we're going to still have a great time. So that is next Sunday from 4 to 12. We got trivia night. I will be in the house for trivia night. So if you guys want to come and have a smoke with me, man, make sure y'all come and have a smoke with me. On Thursday, I'll be there from 6:30 till we close. So that's trivia night. So we got a lot of great things coming up. Next week, we have John Hubert from Crown Heads coming on the show. That is going to be amazing. We got a lot of cigars that we need to talk about that they're coming out with. So that's going to be great, man. JJ, we appreciate you so much, man. We appreciate you. So with that being said, man, if you guys are new to the channel, man, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, give us a huge thumbs up. And if you're new to Facebook, man, go ahead and follow us on the Virtual Smoke Deck on Facebook, as well as follow us at Dapper D Cigars on Facebook and Instagram for all the upcoming events that we have going on in the show. Going on in the shop, as well as anything else that we put out, man. I appreciate you guys spending this time when it's Sunday night football on. Spend that time with me and Alan. We appreciate you guys. You have a very, very, very close part right here. So we appreciate you guys. You have a great day and be safe. Jet Cigar Enthusiast, and I'm going.